Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society bringing you our nightly update regarding everything in the tropics. And we've definitely got some things to talk about. First off, we now have Tropical Storm Fernand. And as we can see, this is no threat to land. This is a fish storm. We also have Invest 99L, currently with a 20% chance of development over the next 48 hours and 7 days. But I got some questions about that 20%, and I'm going to show it all to you all here tonight. So, first, we are going to take a quick look at Fernand here, as we could see starting to get a little bit of that spin. And they have hurricane reconnaissance went out there today and has confirmed a closed low center. And as you could see here, the forecast track keeps it well away from Bermuda, located well to the west of the track, and is forecast to miss all land and stay out over open waters. As of the 5 p.m. advisory, Fernand is currently located at 27.2 north, 61.4 west, maximum sustained winds of 40 miles an hour, and about 405 miles south southeast of Bermuda. Currently moving north at 15 miles an hour with a minimum central pressure of 1,010 millibars. There are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect, and most importantly, no hazards affecting land. If we take a look at the forecaster's discussion here, it says here the trough of low pressure, AL 90, located a few hundred miles south southeast of Bermuda, has become better organized today. And in Hurricane Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter, Air Force Hurricane Hunter aircraft found a well defined center during the past couple of hours with a central pressure of about 1,010 millibars. The initial intensity is set to 35 knots based on earlier scatterometer data, which had a few believable tropical storm force wind vectors and a Dorvac classification of 35 knots. The initial motion is north, or 10 degrees at 13 knots. A north northeastward motion is anticipated during the next couple of days, with a slow increase in forward speed due to Fernand moving around the western periphery of the subtropical ridge. The storm will likely accelerate to the northeast thereafter as the system gets caught up in a faster mid latitude flow well to the southeast of Newfoundland. The global models are in good agreement on this scenario, and the NHC forecast is on the eastern side of the guidance, closest to the HFIP Corrected Consensus Model, or HCCA. Fernand has about 48 hours over warm waters within generally light shear to intensify. There is a fair bit of mid level dry air, however, which could hinder any rapid strengthening, so the intensity forecast will show a more gradual increase in winds. All of the models peak the system as an upper end tropical storm or Category 1 hurricane, and the NHC forecast is just shy of a hurricane as a peak. After Monday, Fernand should weaken due to the influences of cooler water and increasing shear, and the storm will likely become post tropical in 3 to 4 days. As we could see here, peak intensity is expected over about the next 48 hours, with the storm being completely dissipated by 120 hours. Looking at our reconnaissance flight from earlier, we can see that they definitely found a closed low center. So it was classified as of the 5 p.m. advisory. Because of this storm, it is going to help kind of keep the waters here in the Western Atlantic a little bit destabilized and churned up. So please, folks, there are still high risks for rip currents all along many locations of the East Coast for today. And if we take a look at tomorrow, it gets a little better, but high risk areas still remain. Please check with your local officials before entering the water. So now I want to get into a little bit more to where we kind of break down what's going on. Fernand will let that kind of slide. This is the current updated sea surface temperature anomaly from the wake of Aaron. So we are definitely beginning to see some turnover in the temperatures, a significant decrease, as we could see here. Here is the 7 day anomaly change. Quite a bit of cooler waters has impacted parts of the western or southwestern Atlantic. If we take a look at today's temperatures compared to yesterday's temperatures, as you could see, we are still in more of a cooling trend in response to Aaron. We will check back again with this tomorrow night and the night after until we finally see to where the water temperatures themselves have finally kind of reduced. Now, one thing that I will have to show here is the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Caribbean. Let's get out here. Let's go into the tropical Atlantic. So, and there's a reason why I'm showing this. We have Invest 99L, which is somewhere in this range that is forecast to move into the Caribbean, and then potentially, well, with a 20% chance, they're not calling for any type of development once we get into about this region. I, I I'll show you why that maybe not, because we might already have something there by that point. Um, this is what really concerns me. If we get anything coming from the Caribbean and happens to pull northward, um, yeah, I shouldn't have to explain those water temperatures. They're very hot and quite deep, and we don't want to be dealing with that. Oh, shoot. I forgot to pull this way back over here. There's the forecast tracks for Fernand. We got to wait a little bit longer for the actual storm itself. Instead of AL90, now its classification is AL06. So it's the sixth storm of the Atlantic Basin. So we'll have to wait on new spaghetti plots as they come out around 9 p.m. 8:45, 9 p.m. Eastern. So taking a look at the Invest 99L's guidance, this is the part, excuse me, this is the part that is a little bit concerning compared to yesterday. Now, yesterday we had a lot of these ensemble members and spaghetti members kind of doing this number. Today, we're running pretty flat through the first 72 hours. Then we slow down at around 96, and some of them turn this up towards the north. And there is plausibility to that scenario. And we'll go over that here in just a moment when we kind of break into it a little on the deep dive. So, taking a look at this afternoon's European ensembles, I've only got this out 7 days because I really didn't need to go any further than that because of, as we could see here, we have just a couple ensemble members, not a lot, but compared to what we had yesterday, it's definitely more. So I'm going to show you yesterday we had nothing. Then the 0Z run, we really didn't have much, but we've got a few kind of trying to streak along and work its way through the Caribbean and potentially getting out here into parts of the Western Pacific. Well, this afternoon with the 12Z run, we've got a couple that if it does get organized and does get itself developed, it's going to pull northward. And that, folks, is a little bit concerning because even if I run it out day 8, day 9, if it does develop, as you could see, they all get kind of dumb in their intensification due to the fact that uh, there's going to be a trough or a stalled out frontal boundary over the northern portions of the Gulf Coast and off of the east coast of the United States that would potentially help to pull this up and want to turn it depending on where its location is. So, honestly, folks, we want to see this remain weak over the course of its track through the Caribbean. So now let's go ahead and compare that with the AI. Now, the AI out 7 days, we have nothing. I'll push this out 10 days. We don't have anything. We still have the troughing feature here associated with the east coast of the United States and the southeast, but we don't have anything from Invest 99L. So we do not have corroboration from the models. Now, if we compare that with the GEFS, this is the 12Z GEFS ensembles. As you can see, they have a couple little scratch marks getting up towards the islands and then falling apart as it enters the eastern portions of the Caribbean. That is a very plausible scenario in the entirety of Invest 99L. I will show you that here momentarily. Now, if we run this out, say day 8, day 9, day 10, we don't see much. Okay, so the GEFS is not on board with what the Euro legacy is showing. Also, since the Google DeepMind is now an operational experimental model for the National Hurricane Center, we are also going to look at that. And as you can see, I'm out day 8, day 9, day 10. We didn't get anything in the Caribbean. So Google DeepMind and its pattern recognition algorithms and software does not pick up on this developing. In its defense, it has been overperforming in face of what the models are calling for. It has produced quite a bit more convection than what the models have been kind of leaning towards, and it is quite a bit of a concern. So what I have here is the ship's output diagram for Invest 99L. So I'm going to teach y'all how to kind of decipher what we're looking at here. So give me just 1 second because I've got to move this thing. You know what? Let's put our crayons right here in the center if we can. We'll just get it up high and get it out of the way. Okay. Well, yep, I got a box, so that will work. So first off, what we're looking at is this is the track that the ship's output is showing. This is what the forecast track of this wave of energy or Invest 99L ships has given it. Okay. We already have from the ship's model slight signals of rapid intensification. I would not put a lot into this. Okay, do not. We're talking about very low values. Because it is shown here on this screen, I am going to address it. What we have here, though, is kind of my biggest concern. So what we have in this particular column, I need to get the pencil part. We have our winds in the blue. Now, the ship's model is calling for the winds to develop, as you could see, for the storm to develop here within the next potential 48 hours. Because of the shear value dropping right here to around 5 knots, maybe less, and holding that through maybe about 36 hours. That's a concern. The sea surface temperatures Check. We're definitely there. 30 degrees Celsius and running well. The only inhibiting factor to this is our relative humidity from the 500 to 700 millibar level. So for folks, 500 to the 700 millibar level is this area right in here from about 10,000 to 18,000 feet. Now, it may not sound like much, but storms that are trying to take moisture and rise it up to the upper levels of the atmosphere for it to be able to cool, condense, and form thunderstorms, if it is running through a pocket of drier air, it's not going to be able to be as efficient. And if it's not as efficient, it may not develop into a tropical cyclone. Okay, but right now it has been overperforming in some of the models or compared to some of the models. So the relative humidity level, in some aspects, yes, and in some aspects, no. So that leaves a large question mark as to what we may see with this because of the fact that we're looking at the forecast shear to be lower, and we are looking at the sea surface temperatures being fine, and then our relative humidity being marginal at best. I've got a little bit of questions. Now, if we compare that up here, what we have here is 200 millibar divergence in this grayish line. So let's come back over to our graphic. And the 200 millibar level is around 39,000 feet, or as you could see, where this commercial airliner is located. So around that area. Well, what divergence means is that the storm is kind of expanding or diverging from a specific point. So it is rising and then kind of moving outward. It is diverging from the rising. As we can see, the divergence begins to increase from this moment forward. We also have our storm speed. Now, this could be a little bit of a negative factor here, being that the fact that it is moving close to 20 knots, which is a little bit faster than storms would care to move. So we're really going to have to watch this. Now, once this gets through the islands, as we can see, the shear value is forecast to come back up at around 20 knots. So maybe at around 25 mile an hour of shear, maybe a little bit greater as it enters the portions of the Eastern Caribbean. But look what happens after that. The shear values decrease. The relative humidity in the mid-levels increase. Our sea surface temperatures remain the same. Our storm, albeit not much, but our storm begins to slow down just a little bit. Our upper level divergence begins to increase. The oceanic heat content also begins to increase. Do not sleep on 99L. Now, I am going to be the first one to say that there is only a 20% chance of development on this right now. And rightfully, well, maybe not. I mean, if we look at this is 99L right here. If you look at that shower and thunderstorm activity, especially after the sun goes down, it does have a good amount of convection. You can clearly see the Saharan air to its north. So will this dry air impact that? There is shear that is shearing the storm in this general direction off from the southeast to the northwest. It is trying to tear the tops of the thunderstorms off. But it might not be enough. And we really have to watch it. when it gets into that zone right there. Really got to watch it, folks. Because if this does organize, this trough feature that is here is going to want to favor for this to pull northward. And that's going to suck. We're just going to be blunt with it. That's going to suck. On top of that, as we're getting, the MJO cycle is getting a little bit weaker and weaker. It has been hung in phase 3 here over the Indian Ocean and the maritime regions. Both the GFS and the GEFS are calling for this to kind of fall apart. As you can see, even the ensembles themselves are also calling this to fall apart. So the MJO could potentially move back into the Atlantic Basin a little bit quicker than what we would like to see. We are also beginning to get signals of that on our 200 millibar velocity. So we are getting lighter than normal upper level wind forecast for the beginning of September and looks to hold. Okay, so folks, we are damn sure not done with hurricane season. And right now, just don't let your guard down on Invest 99L. Just please don't. I've been watching it like a hawk, because just because the models don't say anything don't mean a damn thing to Mother Nature. So please keep that in mind. Mother Nature sometimes has her own agenda, and unfortunately, this could be one of those times. We're at about that time of the year to where you really have to watch for things like this, regardless what the models are calling for. I'm glad that the Invest classification is there. It allows for a lot more than just the global models to run on it, so it gives us a lot more data to work with. So what we're doing now is we're going to use Earth Null, and again, for our reference, we have we're going to look here, concentrate on our 850 millibar level, our 700 millibar level, our 500 millibar level, and our 250 millibar level. These are the 4 that we are going to concentrate on. So let's go back to Earth Null and take a look. Right now, we're going to put our trusty green circle here on Invest 99L at the 850 millibar level, approximately 1 mile above the ocean surface. We're going to run this forward 24 hours. Please keep in mind that this is on the GFS operational and deterministic solution. So we'll run this forward 24 hours. Now, if you notice, the GFS does not have much on this. The GFS barely has much of any type of strength with the wave axis at the surface and the 850 millibar level, and barely anything at the 700 millibar level. That being said, we're not necessarily going to be looking at this for the actual development of this wave. What we're going to do is slide up just a little bit to take a look at exactly what's going on up here into the United States in response to this wave. So we're going to take this forward again another 24 hours. Now, please note that as this wave is starting to get itself into the Caribbean, we have an increase in winds. We are getting the trade winds down at the surface and, a mile up above the ocean surface. They are being compressed between the mountains of the Andes and the Greater Antilles here. So we get an increase in wind flow at the lower levels. But if we come up into the mid levels, we don't have the same pace of winds that we have in the lower levels. So this is a shearing vector regardless what these winds are showing here in the upper levels. But the upper levels, as we've seen with the ship's diagnostics, has increasing amounts of divergence, which means it allows the air to rise up and escape and move outward. Okay, now let's get back down. Let's go forward another 24 hours. And now, as you could see, the GFS solution barely makes the wave even negligible, or even, you can barely see it at this point. But the thing about this is notice where the high pressure is right here. The high pressure and its flow is right about here. There is another high pressure here, but it is very, very weak. If you look and see right here, it's very weak. There is a break in the highs right here. If this storm were to be something in this region somewhere in here, if it's got strength, if it's able to feel anything, all right, we'll come up even to the 500 millibar level to show. The high pressure is still right there. There is going to be potentially a weakness in the ridge or the ridging in response to this huge upper level low that is coming in. The taste of fall that other folks are dealing with, hey, it's got a little something. It's got a little something. So I'm definitely not trying to, hype anything up. I'm not trying to say that this storm is going to develop in any way, shape, or form. All I am suggesting, don't sleep on that storm. Just if it keeps performing the way that it's going, it could be something that we don't want to be dealing with. Now, what happens when it gets into the Caribbean? That's going to be a whole nother variable. This thing has to jump specific hurdles to be able to accomplish some type of significant threat. So it's got hurdles to continue to go. It's got dry air, it's got shear. I mean, if we look at where it's at right now, and we come up and we look at the 500 millibar level, you could see some of the winds and not behaving in the same way and in the same direction that we have with the lower level winds. So a change of winds with height, a change in direction of winds with height, that's what wind shear is. And it's dealing with some, but maybe not enough. Terry, that is okay. So if we were to go back to the euro, and the euro is the only one that shows of the ensembles that show potential development. So here we are about 7 days out. It just for timing purposes, if you notice 7 days and then 9 days, there is, if it's east of Florida, at least what the models are showing, is that it gets caught up in that flow a little bit more. If it is potentially west, we get a slowdown. So then we get, as that low pressure lifts out and kind of leaves it behind, where does the ridge build back? How does the ridge build back? But what it looks like is if it's too far west, that it loses some of that steering momentum and steering current, and then slows down and potentially kind of lingers in areas that we really don't want a storm to linger for a little while. And but again, this is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circles here tonight. So that's only a 16% chance. And it's the only model that's really picking up on it right now. But it just, knowing what we're looking at, knowing the pattern of the weather pattern over the United States during the timing of this storm that would potentially be passing along, hopefully to the south and off into the eastern portions of the Pacific here. If it does develop and it, by some reason it has the abilities to get just even organized in any way, then it could potentially be a threat for U.S. interests, and I'm quite concerned with just its overall location currently. As you can see, it's only about 12 degrees north, and it's a low rider. And hopefully, it just stays weak. It gets ripped apart. The dust will come through, and we'll, as we can see here, we've got the dust model, and we are expecting some of this dust. You can see the pocket of the wave and the rotation right here. And we're out 66 hours on this 0Z run. And then if you look, it is kind of, it's got this dry air, Saharan air layer to its north and to its west. But the question is, can it wrap it around the backside of it, or is it just going to keep drawing up moisture from the southern hemisphere in the convergence zone of the intertropical air mass collisions? So that's hard to say. As you can see, the dust eventually encapsulates it here on the NASA dust model. It keeps it weak and then rolls it right through Nicaragua and off into portions of the Eastern Pacific. And if it does that, then honestly, we're going to have to watch for the potential of a Central American gyre kickoff, which nobody wants to hear that. So, one way or another, Invest 99L just has a this thorn in the side and kind of a pain in the backside orientation, and I don't like it. Honestly, I don't care for this setup. So as we can see, there is forecast from both global models when we get out to about 7 days, a great amount of shear over portions of the Central Caribbean. So this is going to also play a factor in this as we go forward, and the shear component remains in play. So we'll have to wait and see. Our looking at our 700 millibar relative humidity here with the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. If we run this forward, we'll note that dry air is there, but the GFS has a large moisture plume, does not necessarily develop into anything, but just creates this large area of moisture right here. The Euro right here. So it might be a pretty nasty and rainy portions for folks down here in southern Florida, regardless of development. And let's see, where's our dust model? I looked at this earlier today, and I'll show it to y'all. This way we make sure we completely transparent with all of the data. So what we have here is the NOAA blend of models. Man, this is for total precipitation over the southeastern United States. No, okay, so we'll just go back to last hour's run. This updates once every hour. As you could see, the southeastern United States and Florida potentially gets this belt wrapped around it, and I see something else that is also concerning. So let's just do the whole United States, because it looks like Oklahoma gets absolutely drowned. And they do. Oklahoma, portions of Arkansas, and Kansas. Damn. But as you can see, over from about the I-4 corridor south, maybe about Ocala southward, over the Florida Peninsula, that's a good amount of rain, folks. All right, let's jump out. If you guys got any questions, let's see. I'm gonna look. Central Florida currently identifies as South Florida. Uh, yeah, yeah, I know you want it. Yeah, unfortunately, Amanda Cag is that's a proponent every year. Every year we get it in the beginning of the season and we get it at the end of the season. The beginning of the season is usually like, oh, okay, all right, but the end of the season is like, damn, hide. I don't want nothing to do with it. And unfortunately, with the Enzo signal of maybe some La Nina, reduced shear, we may have an extended period of time for the latter part of hurricane season this year. So, jumping real quick out to the Eastern Pacific, we've got an area of highlighted here on the National Hurricane Center. As you could see when we drew that the other day, I'll be damned if that isn't exactly where we have our current little area of interest right here. And as you can see, let's get rid of that. It currently has a 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 70% chance of development over the next 7 days. It has not been designated as an area of invest yet, but I'm sure that is coming very soon. Looking at its satellite presentation, I would imagine that they would be able to put something on that here as long as it keeps going the way that it is going. All right, jumping out to the Western Pacific, we have Kajiki out here. And this is currently a tropical storm packing 60 knot winds, so a strong upper end tropical storm around 70 miles an hour. And it is forecast to become a typhoon, stay south of Hainan, or the Hainan area here, island, whatever you want to call it, and then turn around and slam right into Vietnam, and it is huge. It has a lot of tropical moisture associated with it. Its Pacific or precipitable water content is quite high. So as this gets in over land, it is going to rain itself out, and flash flooding and just flooding in general is definitely going to be a problem for those folks there, on top of the winds and anything else that is associated with tropical cyclones. Taking a quick look at our global tropics hazards outlook of September 3rd through September 9th, we've got a signal that gets it out here into the Western Caribbean and southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico. So, folks, we gotta just keep our eyes on things. This screams CAG, honestly. That's what it does. It screams CAG to where 99L doesn't really make it too far and then just kind of absorbs into a large gyre system, and then we end up with something potentially out here. There's nothing on the models yet, but with the way that this trough and frontal boundary is coming down, it leaves a lot more questions than answers. I'll put it to you that way. All right, as we can see, when we get into September, they can develop anywhere. This is considered the peak of hurricane season when we get into September. 264 named or points of origin for tropical and subtropical cyclones from 1851 to 2024. After we get past the 10th, it starts to come down, but at 211, it's not coming down a lot. So we're still getting more than one a year. So we're definitely still within that peak portion of the season, as you could see here. So we need to get into October before we start to see, a decent amount of potential reduction for the tropics. All right, everybody, that's about all I have. Unless everybody wants to see halves models and stuff like that, I've been running everything on 99L, trying to make sure that we don't have any issues or any surprises with that ship's model in some of that guidance with the reduction in shear as it approaches the islands and just kind of the marginal relative humidity there in the mid levels. It may have enough to hold on, and if it can hold on that second stage, then we've got things that we're really going to have to talk about. So come back and check with us again tomorrow. We will definitely be going over all of the modeling to see if anything has changed, any trends. We'll quickly discuss Fernand, probably not very much. If we've still got the same signal that we've got on Invest 99L tomorrow night that we do tonight, we'll definitely dive and jump in there and give another breakdown for folks and just to see what has changed. So, all right, everybody, have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central here on Facebook and YouTube. Have a great night, everybody.